The Korean Presbyterian Church of Bayside Small Group Bible Study by Reverend David Lee. Lesson number 71, The River That Makes Glad the City of God, Psalm 46 verses 1-3. For there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. 5 God is in the midst of her, she shall not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. 6 The nations rage, the kingdoms totter, he utters his voice, the earth melts. 7 The Lord of hosts is with us, the God of Jacob is our fortress. Selah. 1. In today's passage, what does the river and the things it does represent? What do you think this teaches us? Today's passage states that a river made the Most High God glad. The title Most High was the highest, most revered and honorable name for a king. Thus, it means that there is nobody higher than God. Today's text expresses that a river of life flows from the Most High God into Jerusalem. This means that the works of God that brings life is with Jerusalem, and so Jerusalem will not be demolished. The psalmist wrote this because Jerusalem was struggling at that time. It was under siege by the Assyrians. Thus, Jerusalem could not turn to anyone for help, and the people had no choice but to die. But that is when the life-giving river of God flowed into Jerusalem. This means that God helped Jerusalem. As a result, Judah was finally freed from Assyria. And so, this psalm is a response of praise to this. This shows that believers must remember that a way is made for those who believe, even when it seems like all the roads are blocked. That path is made for us by receiving God's help. For this reason, I believe that map directions should be altered for believers because there is always another path for us, even when all other roads are blocked. That path leads to God, and it is always accessible. Even if there might be roadblocks all around us, I believe that we will see our problems resolve when we cry out to God. Now, today's passage explains what happens when we seek God's help. Verse 5 states, God is in the midst of her, she shall not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. This verse is saying that when we seek God's help, He is with us. That is why the temple was not moved. Let us not forget this. When we pray, God is with us to help us. Of course, God is everywhere. But He is especially with us and pays close attention to our problems when we seek His help. And so, He guards our families and even the cities in which we live. Verse 5 also means that God answers prayers very quickly. The psalmist stated that when he prayed, God helped when morning dawned. The dawn is the earliest part of the day. Thus, this tells us that God answers us very quickly when we seek Him. As we know, sometimes it seems like God answers our prayers very slowly. That causes us to be frustrated at times. But when time passes, we see that God always answers our prayers at the most opportune time. Therefore, we need patience when we pray. God did not act right away to defeat the Egyptian soldiers when they chased the Israelites after they had escaped Egypt to the wilderness. That's why the Egyptian army was able to closely follow the Israelites as they tried to cross the Red Sea. The Israelites were so afraid that they blamed Moses and God for leading them to their death in the desert. But right then, God answered Moses' prayer and opened the Red Sea. And as the Israelites walked through the Red Sea, God blocked the Egypt army with a pillar of fire. Then, when the Israelites were almost done crossing the Red Sea, God moved the pillar of fire. The Egypt army chased after the Israelites through the path that was made in the Red Sea. Once again, the Israelites became impatient with fear. But as soon as the Israelites crossed the Red Sea, the walls of water crashed down over the Egypt soldiers. Thereby, the Egyptians died in the Red Sea. This shows that God waited for the best time to get rid of the Egyptian army who tried to kill God's people. And not only that, but God also gave the Israelites weapons. They took the weapons from the Egyptian army that floated to shore from the Red Sea. That is how the Israelites ended up with the most advanced weapons in that era. And they used those weapons to conquer Canaan. Through this, we can see that God answers our prayers at the best time in the best way. When we pray, God accomplishes 3 things when He answers our prayers. First, God gives us strong faith in Him. Second, when we pray, God answers us at the best time. Thereby, He perfectly resolves our problems. Third, when we pray, He provides us what we need. Therefore, we must be patient as we pray. Especially in verse 6, we see that at times, God answers our prayers suddenly and not gradually. Verse 6 states, "The nations rage, the kingdoms totter. He utters His voice, the earth melts." According to this verse, the entire world became chaotic because of the invasion of the Assyrians, and the entire nation shook with fear. But with one command from God, everything melted and faded away like snow. This is referring to the time when God answered Hezekiah's prayer by sending an angel in the middle of the night to demolish 18,500 Assyrian soldiers. Even if our prayers are not answered little by little in a gradual manner, we should continue to pray as we trust that God can answer our prayers at once and at the best time. In conclusion, verse 7 states that we should acknowledge God as our fortress, since He is a God who answers prayers. Whenever we face hardships or problems, the first thing we should do is to take refuge in God through prayer. At this time, may we be able to experience God like the psalmist did by taking refuge in Him through prayer. Have you ever experienced God by receiving a sudden answer to your prayers? Let us share our experiences with one another. 2. Let's share what we have learned and determined to do through today's word.